Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Oh, we're doing this?
Yes. I'm glad you brought Echofish.
You did not have to do that. I appreciate it.
I fucking love your channel, dude. I've spent countless hours watching your hilarious videos.
So cool that you've even found it.
Well, you know, Gino told me about it a long
Welcome
your brother
back,
Gino,
Commander.
who I've been friends with for years, told me about it a long time ago that you guys were doing this. And I was like, really? All right. Interesting. And then I watched them like, this is fucking great. It's right up my alley.
You would show clips all the time, and it would drive Gino nuts. And then finally, it got named. Reggie Watts was here. And he's like, you ever hear of the Y-Files? You guys are talking about moon landing shit. And you're like, what's that? And I don't know. A week or two later, Gino gets a text. Are you the Y-Files?
He didn't tell me the name of it.
He was so excited.
Yeah, it's a great show, dude.
You
it's
are
like
pledged to Lee Yong Rui.
everything I'm fascinated by.
You have served for 30.4 weeks and are at rank 1 with 3.6 thousand
How did you
accumulated
get
merits.
involved with making a show like this?
You are docked at Coriolis Starport,
Is this something you've always been interested in?
Macella Hub,
Well, I mean,
in the
like,
Victor
grew up
Tree 7
Art
Far
Bell.
Pegasi
Yeah,
system. You are
Yeah,
allied
still-
with
I
the
mean, the
controlling
Go.
faction, Equestrian Naval Fleet.
Dad was an overnight cop, so always overnight radio. And so it was always Dr. Demento.
Yes.
You remember him? And Art Bell. So I kind of grew up with the weird stories, and it just got in the Twilight Zone. We watched as kids. It was like required watching from Dad in the old black and whites, the classics. So that was always in there. So I'll skip 20 years. We had a podcasting studio in LA on Sunset. We were doing pretty well. We're hosting a lot of shows, guys you knew, like when COVID hit, Kill Tony came and worked out of our studio, Jeremiah, Metzger, all the guys. Didn't make any money, but it was a cool setup. But then they locked down the city, impossibly, and we didn't really know what to do. Then they set fire to the city somehow, and the wife and I are racing down Hollywood Boulevard being chased by people with bats and boxes of Adidas, and we were like, this is too much. And we just started packing. That's it. We got out. And I didn't know what to do. So I'd been working in showbiz, not super successfully, like on the cusp, but I've been a professional host, editor, producer, writer for TV. So I was like, YouTube, easy. I'm a natural. So I started the channel talking about science and weird stuff, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. It was like impossible to do. And I started out like following all the consultants. High energy, smash the like, be a YouTuber, top 10 list. And I did that for a little while. It's like, no one's watching. This feels stupid. And then I said, fuck it. Let me just talk about the shit I want to talk about. So I think the first like good one was Operation High Jump. You know, Admiral Byrd goes down to Antarctica with a armed fleet, supposedly looking for Nazi UFOs, and it's a 6-month mission, and in like a few days they have to turn back, and it's crazy stuff. So I did that story, and it got I think I got 50,000 views.
I don't think I saw that one.
It's an old one.
What happened in Operation High Jump?
All right, Admiral Byrd goes down. This is just after the war. Remember, the Nazis were fleeing to South America, so mostly Argentina. So the Nazis had established, or tried to establish, a base in Antarctica. That's true. It's New Schwabenland. Now, people say they were trying to build a Nazi base and all that stuff. They were really just looking for a whaling station to get oil. So Hitler didn't want to rely on outside sources. So anyway, after the war, they go down there. We still don't really know specifically why. It was supposed to be just to see how our aircraft would operate in cold weather. That was what they said. But this was a fleet that was armed to the teeth, like super, like armed. The first helicopters were there, destroyers. So they go down there. It's supposed to be a multi-month mission, maybe 6 months. They get down there, and in like a matter of weeks, maybe even fewer, they just bail. And no one really knows why. There's a press contingent there. No one knows what's going on. And Admiral Byrd starts giving these weird interviews. And the first one was in Spanish. It might have been either Argentinian or Brazilian newspaper. And he talks about how there could be these craft that attack the United States from the poles, and craft that can fly pole to pole. And people are like, what's that? And just sparked this crazy stuff. And you can hear him talking about these things. So High Jump goes down there to look for stuff. We don't really know why they left.
Admiral Byrd was talking about these crafts?
Admiral Richard E. Byrd, this famous guy, flew the North Pole like a super badass. He was, on paper, the commanding officer, but he preferred to just fly his plane and do stuff. So the legend is, they get down there, Admiral Byrd takes his plane, starts flying across Antarctica, and sees patches of green. He can't believe it. And he's on the radio saying, I'm seeing this, rolling hills, sun is shining, he just keeps flying, it gets greener and greener, and then he's like, I just saw woolly mammoths. Woolly mammoths grazing in the green, and he keeps going, and he's on the radio, and then he's talking, I'm seeing all this stuff, the sun is bright, and then radio contact goes out. He's flying and flying, suddenly he's engulfed in light, and he doesn't know where he is. The green is behind him, he's just flying in light, just trying to get his bearings, and then up beside him, 2 flying saucers, just kind of next to him. Almost like, the F-16's trying to wave you down, 2 flying saucers. And he looks over, and they have swastikas on them. And he's like, uh-oh. So he's on the stick, and he feels the stick shaking, and then the stick just goes dead. And then he goes down with the UFOs, and they just land into a cavern in the hollow earth. Right, so that's how that happens. And they take Admiral Byrd out, and they're tall aliens.
With swastikas on their crafts.
On the crafts.
Like the ancient symbol.
I don't know, which would be reversed, right?
Well, I think there was a bunch of different versions. I think the Nazi one, it was like kind of tilted.
Yes.
But there was a bunch of the Hindu ones and a lot of the Japanese ones.
For thousands of years.
Yeah.
A positive symbol of life. We don't know how they're oriented because I debunked all this. I'm telling you the legend.
Right.
Because that's kind of my format, right?
Right.
I get you excited.
We should explain that to people. You get everybody all jazzed up, and then at the end, you kind of...
I get so much heat for it.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I watch the numbers. Like, as soon as I say, but is it true? Like, everyone's done.
Nobody wants to know the truth.
No one wants to know.
They want to know fun.
And then I'll get the hate mail. You ruined it for me.
So what is the truth?
The truth is, a lot of that comes from Admiral Byrd's diary, which was discovered years later, which was not his diary. Right. Horseshit. And he flew the North Pole, not the South Pole. But here's the interesting thing. He was in a single-man aircraft that only had so much fuel. He was, which can only fly for a little bit, he was out of radio contact for 3 hours. Nobody knows where he went.
What was his take on it?
We don't really know. That's kind of...
So it's just he went radio silent for 3 hours.
It's like he did that interview as soon as they got back, and something must have happened because he got really quiet. But he would go on TV and he would talk. But the pole-to-pole thing was, he was just warning that the poles are a vulnerable space. Like, we need to keep an eye on the North Pole, because if there's a base on North or South Pole, you can attack from there. So let's keep an eye on that. It's kind of his point.
The Antarctica situation is very strange, because I don't know if you ever saw the Sean Ryan show, where he talked to this guy that worked with the neutrino detector down there. And he was, have you seen that?
I haven't seen Sean do it, but I know the guy.
And the guy was saying that it's not just a neutrino detector, it's a direct energy weapon that can cause earthquakes.
This is like the DEWs. The U.S. has always been fascinated.
Direct energy weapon.
Right. That's where the HAARP conspiracies come from, and all of that. And if you don't know what HAARP is, that's the High Altitude Auroral Research Project. It's just this array of antennas in Alaska that's built by the U.S. government to study the ionosphere. But for some reason, it cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And when you look at it, you're like, where'd the money go? It's like a building's a box and there's a bunch of antennas. Where I'm getting at is, this is an array that can ionize parts of the atmosphere. So I did an episode on Project Bluebeam, which is a conspiracy about how the United Nations or the shadow government will create these holograms in the sky, and that will force a one-world government. We can get into it if we need to.
Yeah.
But I kind of debunked it saying holograms need a substrate. You need
clouds.
Glass is really what you need. But then the technology has gotten to the point where you can ionize atmosphere and create things in the atmosphere. So something like HAARP conceivably could create something up there.
Something visual.
Something visual. And I've heard people say that, the UAPs, UFOs may not be real. They could just be holograms for some reason.
I heard that too. Yeah. Or a combination of many different things.
Yes.
I think there's probably a lot of different factors that people are seeing. I was watching a video the other day. I'm not sure if it's real, but I put it on my Instagram anyway, on my story, because it was just fun, of ball lightning, which is real. But this ball lightning was moving around a parking lot, and it was extraordinary. Is this one? Oh, yes.
Plasma lasers that the Navy apparently has to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can also make it make sound somehow too. Which
Yes.
is interesting.
Well, because you're just vibrating air molecules. So in Project Bluebeam, the energy comes from a satellite array. So can satellites do that yet? If it can, they won't tell us.
But that could be a way where you could throw off the enemy or freak people out and pretend that there's some sort of an alien invasion. It's really just a hologram.
Really just a hologram. And that's Bluebeam is supposed to get rid of religion, because what will happen, according to the legend, is the holograms will manifest as whatever deity is dominant in the area, whether it's Jesus or Buddha, whomever. And atheists will see different things. And people will just freak out. Nationalism will go away.
Atheists will see different things. Like, why?
Because, according to the legend, the array or the technology will manipulate your mind. Again, HAARP has been accused of this, because you can manipulate someone's mind with electromagnetic frequencies, at the right frequencies. So they could just tell you to see something.
So, like, that specific?
That's specific.
Alleged.
Now, I debunk a lot of it because the story originally came from a Canadian journalist named Serge Manasse, fascinating figure. He comes out with this theory that's bonkers, and then the Canadian government takes his kids away because they're homeschooled. He gets harassed by authorities. He gets hauled off to jail for spreading disinformation, dies of a heart attack the next day. So then, of course, that's just like, pew, that lights the fuse. So now it's like, what did he find? So, and he talked very publicly about all of this. So that's supposedly how it happens, is they manipulate our minds, they show us what we want to see, and then it's not like we won't resist authority. We'll beg for it. We'll just beg to take our freedom, take our rights, keep us safe.
Whoa. Because something huge is happening and we need to consolidate.
I feel like that's what would happen.
Well, I'm sure you've seen the Hal Puthoff thing. Did you see when Hal Puthoff, George Bush, during his presidency, they floated the idea of disclosure. Did you ever see this?
I didn't see it, but I know Hal's work very well.
So what Hal said was, he and several other scientists were brought aboard, and they were given a task of writing pros and cons to disclosure. What are the things that are going to be disrupted, and what are the things that's going to benefit the society, and attach a numerical value to each thing. And all of the scientists at the end of the day showed that the numerical value for con was far higher. Like, it was going to cause much more disruption than it would be beneficial, and so they decided not to disclose. But what they were telling Hal was, this was what you were planning for was retrieved crafts, not of this world, and biological entities that the United States government is in possession of. Should we disclose this?
Right. I think I've definitely heard that. I don't know is that connected to the Brookings Report, if I'm getting that correct.
Which one's that?
I forget when it would even come out. Here's all the CYAs. I'm an expert on nothing. I don't know anything. I tell stories.
Me too.
Okay? How can you talk about Planet Serpo if you've never been? Look, I just like this. I just all news.
That's gonna go on forever.
Forever.
You've never been.
Never been. I hope he's okay. Douglas Murray's a lot of fun.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, so I'm not an expert at anything. So I don't know when Brookings was, but it's the same thing. It was a recommendation from the government that, look...
It was in 1960.
1960.
Ah, same thing?
I don't know if that's the exact same thing, but...
Same kind of thing?
Proposed studies of the implications of peaceful space activities for human affairs, commissioned by NASA and created by the Brookings Institute. Collaboration, long-range study.
Same result. Don't do it.
Yeah. I think they're probably right, but also I want to know.
Well, that's puts us in a pickle, I think, is, let's say it's real. I want to know too, but I don't want the Chinese to know. And I definitely don't want Iran to know. So I understand.
Why do you not want them to know? Maybe we could all get along if we realize that there's actual aliens that are visiting us. I mean, wasn't that the Ronald Reagan speech in front of the UN? You've seen that, right?
Sure.
Yeah, the famous speech.
But wasn't the SDI part of that speech? Is we'll all get along, but we're going to have laser weapons in space just in case we don't. Wasn't that same speech? It might not have been, but it was about that same time. And that was all smoke and mirrors.
Right, the Star Wars thing was fake, right?
Couldn't get it to work.
Yeah.
It was all fake. So maybe we'll all get along. Boy, that sounds nice. But, Iran produces brilliant people, so intelligent, great engineers, doctors, all of that. But the government is bananas.
Yeah.
So, you don't want to have brilliant scientists working like that.
Right.
We had brilliant scientists working for dictators in the past, and it was not awesome.
Right.
So,
Like the Nazis.
That's who I mean.
Yeah.
That's who I mean. So,
Yeah, it's really sketchy if they get the technology.
right.
Well, this is what Hal Puthoff said. He said that the government of the United States has at least 10 of these things. And I said, well, other governments have them? He said, yes. And I said, well, do they have similar numbers? He's like, we believe so. So they don't know. So essentially what he was kind of alluding to is that there's basically like a kind of Manhattan Project to try to back engineer these things. And whoever figures it out first is going to have a massive advantage.
Right.
And it would be nice if it was us.
It would be nice. Hal Puthoff has been connected to a lot of disinformation campaigns. I love the guy and his work, but he has been connected to disinformation campaigns with known disinformation.
Think about what subjects?
About disclosure. Like, you heard the name Richard Doty?
Yes.
Okay. So, he... Yeah, let's have some coffee. I'm off booze right now.
Forever?
No, not
Cheers.
for... Cheers. I just needed a break. It was becoming a little bit
Me too.
like a habit. You too?
Yeah, I've been off for 2.5 months. Maybe even a little more now. Yeah, I just decided one day I'm done. And then I feel great.
Feel better.
Oh my God.
Think clearer. Wake up feeling better.
I have a nightclub, so I'm at my nightclub, my comedy club, all the time. And, everybody's buying shots, and you want a beer, you want this, that. After a while, you're like, God, I feel like shit.
Yeah, you do.
But it's like the illusion is that you won't have fun. I'm having the same amount of fun. It's so much fun.
Of course, and
not
because
necessary.
I'm funnier because I know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And I'm not embarrassed the next day.
It just doesn't kill your inhibitions, but it's overrated.
It is.
It's fun. I've had a good time boozing, but enough.
I'm allowed to go back at the first of the month. I just needed. You need to quit vices once in a while, if anything, just to prove that you can.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good thing, just to prove doesn't have hooks in you.
Right.
Yeah.
I can quit whenever I want.
I know.
But can you?
I've taken a few days off of social media, and I always feel better, but I always go right back in.
I don't know why I hardly ever look at it.
It's just a massive distraction. Like, I don't read anything about myself, but more so, I'm always looking at, but I find a lot of interesting things too, especially on Instagram. But more so now than ever, my screen time on my phone is dedicated to YouTube. It's like when I come home, especially at the end of the night, come back from the club, I'm tired. I want nonsense. I want Bigfoot.
Same. I don't want to think too hard.
I want Bob Lazar. I want Bigfoot.
Yep.
I want, ancient civilizations. It's just me and the dog watching TV.
Yeah.
Everyone's asleep. That's my favorite.
Because no booze for me doesn't mean no gummies. So a half a gummy in a Bigfoot episode, I'm having a great time.
That's the one that I wish was real, but I'm 99% sure it's horseshit.
Same.
But I also wonder. I wonder if under certain conditions it's real. Like this is gonna sound squirrely. I think under heightened states of anxiety and fear, when you're alone in the woods, maybe it's possible that the barrier between dimensions is slippery and you can see things that you would ordinarily never see. Like it might not even be as simple as this is a biological creature that lives here on Earth with us, but no one's ever found a body. It might be weirder than that. It might be these are some sort of hominid from somewhere else that can appear. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Our great site, JoeRogan.com, was built using Squarespace. But did you know that Squarespace also gives you everything you need to offer services and get paid all in one place? Whether you're doing stuff like using the built-in appointment scheduling for consultations or even email marketing tools to pull off events, Squarespace has all that, plus invoicing and online payment tools that make
were chased between us. Native American legends say exactly that it's this creature that lives between worlds. And and same with giants as well. They have the legends of the red-haired giants that were chased west.
I'm glad we're getting to that.
We're getting giants.
Yeah, because the giants thing is weird. When you go into the story, and I watched your episode on giants, I loved it.
Maybe it was the Malta
Smithsonian.
Oh, that was G.E. Kincaid and the Smithsonian cover-up.
Yeah.
Grand Canyon. That's a good story.
Well, the whole Grand Canyon thing is bananas. Like, there's areas of the Grand Canyon you cannot explore.
You cannot go. You cannot fly over.
Right.
And you can't fly under the rim. Yet when you go to those bad places, suddenly a white plane flies over under the rim, black helicopters show up. I showed on my episode. I show the black helicopters showing up. Like, they do show.
Yeah. Like they are protecting something.
Something.
It's not as simple as this is a dangerous area, because you can go to any dangerous area.
You go just to the normal tourist area. It's like, be careful. People fall. 2 people a year fall.
Yeah, someone fell recently.
They did?
Yeah, an influencer. Of course, taking a selfie. But the Grand Canyon, there's been these crazy stories of people finding these like these caverns with like Egyptian artwork and hieroglyphics and these stories of artifacts that have been removed from there.
So the story is, it shows up, I believe, in like the Phoenix Gazette. It's 1903 or so, and the explorer is G.E. Kincaid, and he's going down. He's looking for gold deposits or whatever. This is just before Teddy Roosevelt made the Grand Canyon a preserve. He was a naturalist, so he finds these steps that are clearly man-made. He follows the steps up, and there's a cave, and he goes in there, and he describes hieroglyphics that look Egyptian but are not quite. He finds a statue that he describes as like Buddha-like, not Egyptian, not human, but sort of like Buddha. And all these weapons, shields, gold, all sorts of stuff. He keeps going. He finds a deserted city in the caves, and all these tunnels and caverns go everywhere, and he's trying to map everything. He comes out, and he goes back to town, and he gathers together a group that we're gonna go find this stuff again. And people are excited about it. And a couple of weeks go by, and everyone's gathered to go on the expedition. He never shows. The expedition goes nowhere, and that's really the last we heard of it.
Really? And is there any photographs or anything?
There never is of this stuff.
Right, just descriptions?
Just a great story.
Well, the great part of the story is the fact that you actually can't go there. And the idea that there's an area where the military is protecting people from being foolish, that doesn't make any sense.
Nobody asks why.
Right.
Nobody asks why. It really bothers me about that story and all of these, whether it's the Scourge or whatever. I don't hear anyone asking why. Well, they won't let us. Or who's they? Right. Someone's in charge of stuff that's not the president.
Right.
Or Congress. So who is it? So,
is it possible there's some sort of a government installation down there somewhere?
It's all going to be woo-woo conspiracy stuff, or it's real. Or G.E. Kincaid found something and someone got to him.
But if G.E. Kincaid found something, why would they want to hide some ancient civilization discovered, particularly in the early 1900s? Like, why? For what reason?
I don't know why Graham Hancock is marginalized now.
Right, but wouldn't you think that there's like less of a grip on that stuff in the 1900s?
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah.
So my guess would be treasure and money. That would be my guess. Is it shows up in the paper, the government goes down there like, there's a lot of stuff down here, let's grab it, send it to the Smithsonian, who keeps 99% of the stuff under wraps. They have, 1 billion items that nobody can see. And then that's the end of it.
What the fuck? Which I would love to know the official reason. See if you can Google. Is there an official reason why you're not allowed to go to certain areas of the Grand Canyon?
They use a VPN there, brother.
The story, I was looking at an article about the original article, and it says that the 2 guys mentioned might not have even existed.
Right.
there's no evidence of them.
G.E. Kincaid?
And another guy named S.A. Jordan.
Oh, so it might be just a story that someone printed? Some horseshit?
Yeah, when I was looking into one of these things before, I found something explaining that back in the early 1900s, when newspapers were a really popular thing to read, I don't know if it was like a game or if there was actual prizes people would play or like amongst themselves to try to get fake stories printed. If you could get the craziest story printed, you win like $500 or.
I might be wrong, but I think Jordan was connected to the Smithsonian, at least according to the story.
I pulled this from the Smithsonian Debunk, which, I mean, obviously they would if this is the way we're going to go with it, but them debunking this, and they gave 2 links, one to the original 1909 article and one to a 2008 update, and that's where I was pulling it from.
I don't trust the Smithsonian. They're exempt from all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like there's a law passed not too long ago that if you have Native American artifacts that are important to that culture, especially burial artifacts, they must be returned. Unless you're the Smithsonian, then
they're allowed to hold on to them?
Then you can make a case that you don't have to give it back.
How do they have so much power?
It's a government agency.
Smithsonian's a government. Oh, I didn't even know. I thought it was a private agency. So there's no official story as to why this area of the Grand Canyon is off limits.
For your safety.
The forbidden zone, they call it.
Yeah, that's all I can find.
That's fucking weird. That's fucking weird. That this story comes from the very area that's forbidden. That's fucking weird.
I think.
What are the odds?
I don't believe in coincidences, so. A lot of these stories come from places you just can't go.
Has anybody tried to hike in?
All the time.
Wear
Or
camo?
raft in.
Did they get busted?
And busted, yeah, and arrested.
Really?
You could find online. I wish I knew the names of a team that went up there. That's who found the black helicopters, and I used them in the video, and I credit them. So you can find their videos. They're up there for an hour and a half, trying to find stuff. And what they found up in that forbidden zone is anchored into the ground a giant hook,
right,
or like a loop.
Yeah.
Like what would you use that for? And that would be to rappel down. That's the only reason that would be there. There's no explanation for what is this. They also found artifacts from that era, from the early 1900s, artifacts that people were there. So it's possible they rappelled that, like they might have been standing right above that entrance. And there are reverse angles of that rock face that look a little weird. It could be pareidolia, but
What's pareidolia?
Pareidolia is the mind's ability to see objects in random noise. It's something we evolved to see predators in the forest. That's why if you see a cloud that looks like an Abraham Lincoln,
right,
it's not Abraham Lincoln. It's pareidolia. But debunkers will always fall on pareidolia. So like the real believers, they hate that word.
God, that would be. Imagine everything would have to be rewritten. If they found some evidence of a lost civilization with no connection to any known civilization that was advanced, that was living in the Grand Canyon.
Did you ever think about going?
To the Grand Canyon?
To go and just be an outlaw and go see.
How would you get in, though? I mean, if they have black helicopters and they're scanning the sky, or scanning the ground with some sort of a drone or a plane. We
go in, we live.
Are you planning something?
No, hold on.
What should we do?
I don't have a contract, all right? So this is it's already dangerous me sitting here. But I got your back.
If I go.
Yeah. Because even if they drag you out, questions have to be posed.
Right. Why couldn't I go there?
What did he do wrong? Well, he violated this area. Okay, well, how come?
Yeah, well, when you think about how dangerous the Grand Canyon is overall, there's not a safe area. It's literally a canyon. You could fall at any of a million spots along the way to your death.
Have you been there?
Yes.
It's
incredible.
Incredible. You couldn't paint a better picture. But as you get closer to that edge, you can feel your amygdala going, oh, back up.
Yeah.
Like it's seriously dangerous.
Yeah. God, the problem is I want to believe. With all these things. Yeah, same. Most people that enjoy your show want to believe. That's why it's so fun.
And I don't believe most of the stuff I talk about. But when I approach a story, I try to find as much evidence as I can to support it, and I also want to find the other side, so that what we're left with is some truth. And not all stories can be fully debunked. And I've had my mind flipped a couple of times. You know, crop circles, hollow moons, some really crazy shit have flipped me around.
Crop circles is a weird one.
So weird.
It's a weird one because when I first saw them, I'm like, what is that? And then I saw that these guys were doing them with boards and string. I was like, oh, it's just people being silly. And then I watched a whole documentary about how the energy that bent these things over caused these nodes to explode as if they've been cooked in a microwave.
Correct.
Like, what? And then you find out that the actual stalks are woven together.
Correct.
It's not that they're pressed down, they're woven together. And that these are complex geometric designs that would have taken people weeks to map out. And there's no footprints leading up to it. There's no roads, no machinery, no evidence of any use of any kind of machinery. And these things appear like that. Like people have flown over an area and then flown back an hour or two later, and there's immense football field size, perfect geometry that no one can explain how it was created.
Correct. So the nodes in the stalks, the node is like a knuckle on your fingers. So those are there for phototropism to bend toward light. So what you're talking about is these things are bent over. They're bent over at right angles. It can only be done with high energy. But also around these crop circles, they're finding microscopic metallic spheroids in around the surface. And that's not a conspiracy theory. They're finding it. And there are these magnetic fields around the circles. And you can see videos online of people going into these crop circles and their hands start to get red. Things are happening to them. So I went into crop circles thinking it was all guys with boards. Mm-hmm. But then when you watch people with boards make a crop circle, it's a mess. They can't do this. And you cannot bend the nodes of reeds and weave them together in a perfect. You can't do it. So that was, as I'm doing the research, I'm like, all right, 99% of them are fake, but there's this 1% that I cannot explain.
The famous video where you see the orbs circling around the field in England and then the crop circle slowly starts to emerge, has that been debunked?
Semi. It's controversial because the guy released that video, I don't know his name offhand, allegedly went to a visual effects house.
Oh boy.
And released it. But they somehow put that thing together in a matter of hours, which is suspicious. So in my episode on it, I said, all right, here's what the skeptics say. But, you know, in the 1990s, to do that kind of VFX work, because it looks real. Mm-hmm. I don't know. To me, I'm on the fence about it. You know,
it's very convenient that they got the footage.
It is.
You know?
It is. Operation Blackbird was a famous operation in 1990 to try and capture the footage live by a great researcher named Colin Andrews. And,
he's the guy that does the books on crop circles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's all in.
He's all in, and he got a lot of support for Blackbird, and not only did nothing happen, he was totally embarrassed by it. And it was all like streaming live, and a lot of people were involved. He's embarrassed. We find out later that while they're like waiting for the circles to happen, just a few miles away, there's a top-secret military operation doing whatever they're doing. He doesn't know why. And then he gets a knock on the door from someone, you know, Men in Black, whoever it is, that first offers him money to stop his work, then threatens him with whatever, threatens his family, and he doesn't know who this guy is. They go back and look at the tapes, and he sees the guy in the background of like one of the TV crews. So the theory is some type of intelligence was embedded into Blackbird, made to discredit him, and that was kind of the end of Colin Andrews, because he was a legit researcher at that point. Now he's fringe. Now he's pseudoscience. But I get into that in the episode. That was something I discovered. I never knew that there was intelligence involved. I didn't know that there was a military op, which is confirmed. It's wild.
So do you think they discredited him on purpose?
Yes.
Interesting. To make the crop circle thing look foolish. But like, what is the crop circle thing? Like, what is out of the believers, what is the best theory?
The believers is that it's a way to message craft, or it's a landing site, or it's some type of communication.
But why are they doing it in wheat fields?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. If you have the technology, just, you know,
yeah,
pick up the phone. You know, there's better ways than just mowing wheat down. But I don't understand.
Do you know the one about the Mandelbrot set?
I've seen it.
Yeah. I think that one is really weird because I think it coincides with the fractal creation of the Mandelbrot set by these people that are into this kind of geometry and fractals. They're like, someone made the Mandelbrot set, which is essentially an infinite fractal of like spectacular design.
And this is before Lorenz and the Lorenz Attractor. I think it's before that, isn't it?
I don't know.
Before it was mainstream.
Yeah, before it was mainstream,
Right.
yes. And then when this thing appears and people are like, well, what is this design? And then they connect it to this Mandelbrot set, which is, someone would have to have some very esoteric information.
And it's Mandelbrot set using Fibonacci numbers.
Yes.
And the phi, the golden ratio.
And it's accurate.
And it's accurate down to inches.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Well, maybe you can, but like how and how long would it take and how much planning and how many people and what would you use? Like what is the technology that's used to bend those things over that way and weave them? It's very weird stuff.
It's weird.
Because it's these, you know, the way these fractals work, it's this ratio in the geometry is like their specific sizes. This one is half the size of that one, which is half the size of that one, and it goes on and on forever. And when you see it all, see if you can find the Mandelbrot set.
It's maybe the most spectacular crop circle.
It's weird. It's really weird because it's fucking enormous.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it seems so stupid. Wow, there's a whole bunch of them. The Mandelbrot set is the one with the look like a heart. About that one right there. Yeah, that's it. That's the Mandelbrot set.
Yep, and there's some other fractals there as well.
I was looking at an article that says these two guys took on the challenge and did it for a TV show on the BBC.
They did. If you watch them do it, it's clumsy AF.
Yeah, it doesn't look as good. Like, like
Trying to find it.
Because
I know they always say that these guys did it, but like, yeah.
you can't really see it there, but those flattened reeds, they're woven together.
with some of the weirder ones, go back to other crop circles. You had some other images before that. There's some other ones. Those spirals.
Right.
Like that one right there. Yeah. That is fucking wild.
That's wild.
Like, this is multiple football fields long and wide. So, how? Make that one a little bigger, please.
And one of these, I don't know if it's that one in particular, showed up right next to Stonehenge. Like a tennis ball throw away.
Like, that is crazy. To not, first of all, if you're on the ground, all right, just the measurements alone to make each one the equal distance between circles, you know, in the whatever 6 different blades that you have that stem from the center, they're all the same distance, they're all the same size.
The small circles are the ones that are most interesting, because how hard is that to do?
Right. And they're uniform. And
Yep.
it's like, what is that? Like, what the fuck is that? And if that is a hoax, it's so bizarre that it's only these 2 goofballs that were making really shitty ones with boards and strings. And yet there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these like really complex ones.
Yeah, those are the guys that are on. You can see them doing it live.
Yeah, but those guys, there's no way they had enough time to do all these things.
And it looked terrible. Janky, look, he's just trampling it.
Yeah. I mean, look, you can certainly make crop circles with a string and a board. You certainly can make crop circles. But it always gets connected, like believing in aliens and everything else. But it's not, no one's even saying aliens. Like, it could be some sort of energy from something that we possess, something that humans possess, that they somehow or another aim at these areas. Like, what is that one above it? Go with that one right there above, like right there. What the fuck is that thing? Look at that.
They are in the same count. 80% of them come from the same county in England.
Which is also weird.
Now, people will correct me in the comments, but I believe that middle piece of geometry is a hypercube, isn't it? Isn't that a 4-dimensional cube?
I don't know.
A tesseract?
It does look like it, but
Like, what the fuck? How long would that take? That seems like that would take a long time to do.
Stonehenge is under constant surveillance, and circles show up overnight.
very weird stuff.
There's an interesting conspiracy
What the fuck, dude?
to crop circles that we can get into later.
Wiltshire has the most crop circles in England.
Yes.
And it's mostly in England, too, which is also weird.
And mostly in Wiltshire.
Is there some sort of a theory by the kooks?
Ley lines.
Ley lines.
That they're happening on these segments of energy that intersect.
What is that black and white one, Jamie? Click on that one.
It's just a.
No. The one with that one. What the fuck is that? Wow.
Wow. On a mountain.
That could be in sand, I think. 'Cause those are like sand dunes.
Is that what that is?
Circle 16.
That's crazy.
Well, I've never seen that one. It's wild.
I mean, just the amount of time that it would take to do these things. So, ley lines. So this is the theory?
That's a theory. Have you heard about ley lines?
Kind of.
It's this alleged grid of energy that circles the Earth, and almost like how magnetic fields work. And these energy lines have intersection points, and on these intersection points are things like Stonehenge, Giza.
Whoa.
It's in snow on a mountain in France.
Wow! Where are the tracks in?
What? Okay, what the fuck is that?
So this is
no footprints, no tracks.
Footprints right here.
Yeah, but that
Where?
could be
That could be the people that discovered it.
Right.
Though.
Oh, this is the guy that did it, though.
Oh, the guy-
it's an artist
an
that did this. These aren't
did
crop
it.
circles. This is an artist doing it. That's
I
kind of
see.
what I was trying to say.
Fucking incredible. An artist did that?
Yeah, it has the guy's name on that first picture we had here.
Amazing.
Simon Beck.
So the artist angle is a conspiracy angle. There's a man named John Lundberg, who was part of a group called CircleMakers.org, which is an art project and also a sociology experiment. He would make fake crop circles to see how people would react. Years later, Lundberg and some associates created a documentary called Mirage Men, which is an excellent documentary. And it's mostly about Richard Doty and his disinformation campaign on behalf of the Air Force to discredit the UFO community. Drove Paul Benowitz nuts. Bill Moore, who's the guy who essentially brought Roswell out to the public. Bill Moore was taking payments and being fed information from Doty to muddy the waters in the UFO community. He finally came clean in '89, was booed off the stage at MUFON. Everything just unraveled. So it's all disinfo.
Boot him off the stage?
Because he finally said, look, I've been working with the government. A lot of the stuff I've been saying, they told me to say. Majestic 12, all this stuff was coming from Doty. And they didn't want to hear it. And his career was basically over that day. Bill Moore. There was no Roswell story before his book. And, that was Doty. So the documentary about Doty was directed and put together by Lundberg and his associates. Lundberg was one of the original circle makers that would make these fake crop circles to see how people would react. I just thought it was an interesting connection.
But it's interesting because clearly some people are making these. Mm-hmm. But, what was the origins of it? Because I'm sure you've seen that image from the newspaper of the devil with a scythe. You know what I mean? And they're talking about crop circles back in the 17 and 1800s. Yeah, 1600s. Wow. First crop circle ever reported was in 1670. According to the story, farmer and crop mower were arguing about the cost of harvesting the farmer's oat field. The farmer was furious at the mower's price and stormed off, swearing that the devil himself should harvest the crop. That night, a dazzling light lit up the oat field, and in the morning, the farmer discovered perfectly round circles in his crops. He was so frightened by the circles, which he thought could only have been so neatly mowed by the devil or some infernal spirit, that he abandoned any attempt to harvest the field. That's a little sketchy. You're scared of circles. Come on, pussy.
Really, though? If there were crop circles in my backyard, I would be a little nervous.
I would be curious. It's not terrifying, right? Mm-hmm. They're not something that would scare me away from harvesting my crop.
No, I'm more afraid of the government than I am of, that stuff.
Crop circles don't seem to be killing anybody.
No.
But it's so ley lines. So these things are to differentiate areas so they could see them from the sky. Is that the idea?
The ley lines are the energy lines. Mm-hmm. A mystical energy. It's not a scientific energy. And where the lines intersect is where you see sites like Machu Picchu, Giza, Stonehenge, all these ancient sites. There's the ley lines.
Oh.
But ley lines is, it's semi-debunkable because if you connect enough lines, you're going to find patterns. You're going to find geometry.
Right. You go looking for it.
Right.
Just very weird stuff. Like I said, I used to think it was total nonsense until I saw some documentaries on it where they were talking about the nodes. They were talking about some of these things are just so complex and they appear so quickly.
The nodes and the braiding to me is like, now I got to change my approach to this.
What do you think it is?
I don't know. I think it's beyond us. It's just we're just monkeys trying to guess math. I don't know. Every time we make a guess on this show, someone's laughing.
Of course.
Someone's like, they think it's a landing site.
Well, it's one of those subjects that if you even entertain it, you're almost immediately a fool, which I'm super comfortable with being a fool. I entertain a lot of foolish ideas, but that one is particularly foolish because people will always point to those guys with boards, and I'm like, not so fast. Yeah, those guys with boards definitely made some circles, but there's some of them that are really spectacular.
They are.
And it just doesn't, and when you factor in the nodes and you factor in the weaving and then these incredible geometric shapes, like how are you even mapping that? Like how are you doing that? How many people are involved? How long does it take?
It would take people so long, it would never be that accurate.
Yeah.
With ropes and boards, I just don't see it.
Right, but like it leaves you with this weird mystery. Just like what is this?
I wish I knew.
It's just one of those things that like it's almost like the universe is laughing at us. Every now and then it just shows you something that's like so goofy that you have to go, well, what is real?
It was a hoax, but a great crop circle was the Arecibo response. Do you know that one?
Yes.
That was a great one.
Yeah.
We sent the Arecibo message out, but had all the symbols on it.
And it sent it back with like a half a alien face.
Right, and it showed where in their solar system they lived, what their DNA was like. It was a great one.
Who did that one?
I don't know who did. I don't know from Circle Makers. I don't know who it was, but it was a hoax. But it was like a really well thought out one.
Well, that one kind of looks like a hoax. Like it's so on the nose. You have an alien face in the crop circle.
Wasn't that different than the Arecibo response?
Is it?
I forget.
I think they were related. I'm not sure though.
The response I thought was so cool.
I thought the Arecibo response was aligned with that UFO thing, the alien face. See if you can find the crop circle that says it, Jamie.
You could be right. As soon as you see the alien face, you're out.
I think the Arecibo response is next to there it is above that, Jamie. You just had it. If you scroll, go to the top, right there. Bam. Okay, so that's different.
That's different, but there's
it says Arecibo is the answer.
It's an album cover for someone on Apple.
Right, but the crop circle is a real crop circle. That somebody actually made that.
Right, and that's a message in that circle.
Right. Look at that one to the right.
There's the Arecibo response down there with the humanoid face.
Yeah, that's it. Very weird. So that's a hoax.
That's a hoax. Boy,
it's a fucking great one. Go back a couple of posts. Yeah, right there. That one on the right-hand side. That's crazy.
It's the small circles that get me.
Well, it's fucking... If it is a hoax, it's amazing. That is just so weird. But again, it's like one of those, like, it's not satisfying.
No, it's not.
There's not like at the end of it, you're just like, I don't know.
That's why the worst question is, what do you think it is?
Right. I was hoping you had something stupid.
No, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I do know that I want to believe, which is always the problem with me with all these things. I want to believe the bases in Antarctica. I want to believe that there's pyramids up there, all that stuff.
Yeah, and when you find out something's debunked, how do you feel?
Oh,
Are you okay?
Yeah. I mean, disappointed, but...
But there's a party that goes, yeah, that's probably right.
Well, I think most of them are bullshit. I think, like, most UFO sightings are bullshit. Most UFO sightings are probably people seeing experimental military aircraft and things along those lines. Satellites, that's a big one. Like the Starlink ones fly across the night sky. People are like, oh my God, it's an alien.
It's not an alien. You can see him with your naked eye.
Satellite, yeah. But if you didn't know what it was, it looks like a fleet
It
of
does.
ships flying across the sky.
And the way that they alternate lights, it looks like there's an intelligence to it.
Right. Yeah. I've never seen anything myself. Have you?
No. Gino has.
What did he say?
Gino saw it, and I think maybe Jeremiah said he saw the same thing. Gino saw a giant orb of light over the Pacific Ocean, and he watched it for a long time. And I said, where's the photo of it? And he said, I was so in awe, I didn't even think to get out my phone. It's like, man, but that's a common thing you hear. Is you're just so in awe, you don't think I gotta selfie this.
Right, you probably, if you actually saw something, there's a high probability you'd be so freaked out you'd be just in the moment. Like,
Yeah. And Gino's legit. He's not bullshit.
Yeah. No, I've talked to Dave Foley had a sighting. He saw something.
Gino talked to David about. They saw the same thing.
Yeah. Well, there's always the question of like what's going on off the coast, and I'm sure you're aware of this one. We actually talked about it the other day, but we never found it. There's a structure that's off of Malibu in the deep water that was available on Google Maps.
Was a structure.
And now it's blurred out.
Yep.
But it looked like there's openings in it. There's a top that's flat. It looks like
a base.
Looks like a base.
Looks like a base.
Yeah.
If
now it doesn't.
Now it just looks like blurry water.
Yeah, like why does it look different now? What's going on?
With a gun to my head, all the weird stuff is in the ocean. It's not from another planet.
Really?
Nah, I don't know. Who knows? But it makes a lot more sense that the stuff we're seeing. It's the best place to hide is just deep water.
So not from another planet originally? Like maybe originally and that's where they make their base?
It's hard for me to square how to travel great distances. It's hard for me to square that. I know that we've got the Albuquerque drive and warp drive and all these theoretical things about compressing space-time and all of that. I get it. But it's hard for me to think that that's solvable. But what is interesting is maybe another species evolved alongside of us a long time ago and has been here a long time and said, you know what, let's go, this is where we go to avoid cataclysms and geological instability. Let's go underwater.
That's a weird one though, because like what kind of technology are you utilizing? How did you achieve that level of technological superiority and not completely control man? Because if I was an intelligent species that was capable of developing bases under the water, I'd be super concerned at all the different things that human beings are doing to ruin things. Like if we had chimps that all of a sudden had flamethrowers and they were lighting the jungle on fire, we'd probably take their flamethrowers.
So like we would turn off a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
Right. So we talk about humans. If this theory is true that they evolved here, there were no humans. Humans are 300,000 years old. That's not. It would take whatever species a lot longer than that to evolve to this technological level. And we've seen the craft just zip into water with no displacement.
Right.
Where are they going? And there are unnamed whistleblowers, anonymous sources that say there's a base near the Bermuda Triangle. The Navy knows about it. They know not to get close. It moves around a little bit. I'm going to do an episode on it soon because it's just too good not to. Corroborated by another biologist who said he worked with the retrieval team, and yes, there's stuff. And what this base does is it from raw materials creates craft to go on specific missions. So there's always the question, why is there a saucer? Why does it look like a pyramid? Why is it this? It's because they're custom built for a mission. And there's an AI and a species down there, and they say, all right, we're going to go survey Mount Hayes in Alaska. Super fascinating place. So we only need a scanning gear, some propulsion, and we just build it. Fits in an orb, send it out, does its thing, comes back, and then it gets broken down to its parts. And then another mission, build it. It's going to be a triangle. It's going to be this or that. Does its mission, comes back. To me, that makes good sense. A good way to do that, a good way to conserve resources, not have to go out and get stuff. I like the theory. It's a fun theory.
It's a fun theory, yeah. It's a fun theory also that if you were creating bases here, like say if they're coming from somewhere else and they want to visit us, it would be far more logical to develop some sort of a base with resources and, where you could observe things, and they can exist there completely undetected, and then be able to go to wherever they're from, back and forth. But when they're here on Earth, they would be undetected.
Right.
And the ocean is literally 70-something% of the Earth's surface.
And we've mapped, I think, 2 or 3%.
Yeah. It'd be a good place to hide in plain sight.
That's what I would do. And to make things from raw materials, meaning like molecular level stuff, you're totally off grid. We don't need to strip mine. We got everything here.
Right. And if you have something that's a transmedium vehicle, so it doesn't displace the water, it works on some sort of a warp drive or something.
I think you have to get into interdimensionality then, and it gets a little wild. But if you're not displacing air or water, that means you're phasing through matter.
Right.
Which is theoretically doable because everything is mostly space.
Well, they said they've mapped things going under the water 500 knots.
Right, without making a splash.
Yeah, no ripples, no discernible waves.
Just Greg Louganis, right in there, nothing.
500 knots under the water. I mean, what the fuck could do that? The amount of energy you'd have to go through that much resistance of deep water, 500 miles an hour, 500 knots.
Right, look at how when they do missile tests from subs, how those things are just like, trying to get out of the water.
Yeah.
And these things just go bloop.
Yeah.
And nothing.
Well, that's the weird ones. But that would make you also think like maybe it is a hologram. Because if there are these transmedium things, but the thing is they're seeing them with radar.
Right, which means heat signature or mass.
Right.
Or electromagnetic displacement.
Or if it is some sort of photons, like some sort of a projection, would that not have some kind of a heat signature?
It would if it was ionized air. That would be plasma, so that was hot. If that's what it is. But when they go into the water, we see them under the water for a second, and you don't see any refraction.
Right.
So that kind of screws up the holographic projection theory a little bit, because there's no light refraction. So how did you do that?
Yeah.
No, I'm asking you how do you do that. I don't know either.
I mean, that's my answer. Yeah.
I mean, you've had physicists on here that I've seen go,
Yeah. Well, the really crazy ones are the ones that the fighter pilots have seen. Because, particularly Commander Fravor and the other people that were on that mission with him. So 2 separate jets. You have 4 people that are eyewitness to this thing. And then that there was something actually under the surface of the water, like an aircraft carrier, an enormous thing, that this Tic Tac is hovering above. And then that thing descends into the water. The Tic Tac turns towards them, jamming their signal, is hovering in space, and then shoots off at such an insane rate of speed that most of the things that we have on Earth would just disintegrate and fall apart just from the sheer pressure.
Of course, and from the inertia.
Yeah.
It could be done. Now, if I were doing an episode on Tic Tac or Go Fast or Gimbal, I would be remiss if I didn't include Mick West's analysis of those. And I know you've talked to Mick on and off throughout the
He's like
years.
a professional debunker.
He is.
He wants to debunk things that I don't think can be debunked.
He does. He approaches it as it's definitely fake, and I'm going to show you why.
Everything is definitely fake. Almost to the point where I'm like, who you working for?
Right.
Who you working for?
Everyone thinks we're CIA, by the way.
Me and you?
Oh, yeah. Reddit is convinced I'm CIA.
Oh. Me too?
That's why my channel blew up in 2.5 years.
Because of CIA?
CIA is back.
Oh, I've heard that before. I've heard that about many people. Like the reason why they got successful. I've heard that about me too.
Yeah.
Like go back to 2009 when I had 200 viewers. Like the CIA sucked back then. They weren't helping me at all.
Dude, I remember just watching you in little squares on Ustream, just like the top of your head,
Yeah.
and Brian and Duncan. I mean, that's what Gino's like, you gotta watch Joe Rogan's show on Ustream. What are you talking about? He's a comic. He's like, he's got Graham Hancock on. I went, oh, I gotta watch that. And that's when I started watching.
I think Graham was our first serious guest. So it was Duncan and I, and we were in my house, and Graham flew from England. We ate pizza in my kitchen. It was the first time I got to meet him. I was so pumped because I'd read his book in the 90s.
Same.
Yeah, Fingerprints of the Gods, amazing book.
From Art Bell is who told me about it.
Yeah, I remember my wife was like, you should read like real archaeology. I'm like, no, this is fucking interesting shit.
Is your wife a scientist or something?
No. She's just a little more serious than me.
Yeah,
a little smarter than me.
Same.
But it's like I still to this day will pick up those books and read them, and it's like I do not think that modern archaeology has the full story, and I've seen the way they behave. I saw the way Flint Dibble behaved with Graham. They're gatekeepers. They don't want anyone to have any information that they don't have. So even in the face of very compelling information, they dismiss openly, quickly, without any consideration. They just want to dismiss it, and then they want to pretend that any archaeologist that presents any kind of information that fucks up the narrative isn't immediately attacked. And they are. Their careers are ruined. Whether you go back to Clovis first or in any of these different archaeologists that have proposed alternative theories of the human timeline, all of the conventional archaeologists, all the mainstream people attacked them. Dismissed them.
Randall Carlson, Robert Schoch, John Anthony West.
Mm-hmm.
If I were advising Graham, I would have said, don't do that debate. Don't do it. There's no way to come off. You're not going to convince anybody, and you're just going to come off not looking great. And I've seen his response on his own site. And he's even said that was probably a mistake. He wasn't prepared enough. But you'll never be prepared enough for a professional debunker. You just won't be. They'll have too much. So I would have told him, don't go into the lion's den.
Well, the problem was he wasn't being honest. Flint was not being honest about the information that we have, particularly about offshore shipwrecks. He was just not honest.
Nope.
And the amount that they have discovered, not honest.
And Graham didn't know that at the time.
And also the timeline of like how old these are. When you get to 5,000, 6,000 years, there's no ship left. All you have is like the pottery and whatever is on the ground at the bottom. And if you're talking about 10,000 years, 15,000 years, who's to say that that's not completely covered by sediment by then? And it probably would be.
Well, I watched a little of Zayawas on here.
That's all you need, just a little. For that episode, you get it.
I couldn't believe he's still doing it. I mean, maybe he was around when they actually built the things.
I think that was probably the best advertisement for alternative archaeology you're ever going to get. When you see the guy that's the gatekeeper and how closed-minded he is.
He didn't mention the capstones, the limestone facing from Torah. He didn't even talk about it.
Well, also, this just saying it was the national project, and that's how they were able to get 80-ton stones 500 miles away through the mountains on sleds. Like, come on.
The Aslan stones are from 1,200 miles away.
Yeah.
The Torah stones are, I don't know, 20, 30 miles away or whatever they were.
How about those Lebanon stones at Baalbek?
Baalbek, they can't, how many tons is that? You need a person standing on it to even see the size of it. If you've never seen the Baalbek stone, if you're listening, the thing is, it's like a skyscraper on its side.
Yeah.
And it's one solid piece.
And it was moved there.
Yes.
See, pull up the Baalbek stones in Lebanon. Because there's stuff that's above it that is like of a more recent time period, but it seems to have been put there on top of these older stones that are so big they don't make any sense. Like, that's just one of them that was quarried but not moved, but the ones that are in place. Go to the ones that, see, like these ones, the ones that are above, so they're the lower stones and the ones above. You don't realize how big they are unless you can get a human being to stand next to them, but they are preposterously big. Like, there you go.
Right.
Like,
15 feet high, 30, 40 feet long. I mean, they're showing in metric, so I'm confused.
Incredible.
Right.
And who did it and when? When was that done? And then there's like Malta, like that stuff that they think Malta was constructed when the sea levels were much lower, so there was a way to make a path to there from Italy and from these other places.
Sure.
Because they found Neanderthal bones there, and
that
so,
allegedly giants built that. Derinkuyu and all the hidden cities underneath Cappadocia and Turkey that they're finding are connected.
Nuts.
No one knows who made them.
No one knows who made them, and they can have thousands of people living underground.
They can bring fresh water from the aquifers. They can bring fresh air and circulate it. They have defensive mechanisms with these giant stones, and nobody knows how they made them.
Yeah, and who?
And why?
Yeah.
Great flood.
Yeah, that's the theory, right? The theory of the Great Flood, and then the Younger Dryas impact theory destroyed the atmosphere, where there was just like above the Earth was just like chaotic, and they sought refuge underground.
I lean more toward the ice sheets melted from a solar event than an impact, but it certainly could be either. I mean,
Well, it could be a combination of
Could
things
be.
because it's also, they think there was more than one. The impact event, they know this based on 4 samples, iridium, the nanodiamonds that come from impacts.
this is the Greenland impact.
Yeah, not just Greenland, North America. They think it happened. I think they found the evidence of this stuff at like 30% of the Earth's surface where they believe these things had hit. I think we got bombarded.
Right, so that would be like flying through an asteroid field, like the Leonids or the Perseids and the Taurids. So the remnants of some giant object that is rubble, and then we
Right.
just fly through it, which means we fly through it frequently,
We fly through it twice a year.
twice a year.
But we don't always, most of the time we get lucky, and it's not a really a hot one. But like what
there-
happened
but there
with
are big-
Tunguska.
Tunguska, right? That's Greenland.
And
That's
it's-
1907.
And in the same month that we passed through that comet field.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right, that's over Siberia, and that was an airburst. Because there's no impact crater,
Right.
but it flattened like millions of square miles of trees.
And still fucked. To this
Still-
day.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's images of that. If you want to look up that, there's actual like film of it. It's crazy. It looks like a bomb went off.
Yeah, we're in a shooting gallery. Earth is flying through a shooting gallery. There's 900,000 near-Earth objects that are just hovering around out there.
And NASA says we tracked most of them because in those fields with the proceeds towards, there are big objects. There are Earth killers in there.
Oh yeah.
And Apophis is lurking. Apophis is the big one. That's due to fly by in a few years.
What's that one?
That's a giant asteroid that's I think it's due to fly by maybe 2030 something.
How big is that one?
I'll get it wrong. I mean, I'm going to say a million things wrong today. I'll hear all about it. But it's a planet killer. Like it's a civilization ender, and it's going to fly near. Like we're going to be able to see it during the day.
375 meters across, about the size of a cruise liner. It will pass within 32,000 kilometers of Earth's surface on April 13th, 2029.
Now stop there. That's closer than the moon. Way closer than the moon.
Yeah.
So that's about 70,000 miles, where the moon is
250?
250 to 300. So we're going to see that. What? You don't want to see that in this. You don't want to look up and see that.
Well, just knowing that ones far larger have passed through.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know for sure a bunch have hit.
Sure.
Chichen Itza, that one.
All right, Chicxulub, but that was
Yeah.
pseudoscience until that father son went down there and found it. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't that. I think that was when I was growing up. The dinosaurs died. And that was a conspiracy theory. The
Right.
asteroid.
Right.
And they found it. I think
They
around
found the
1980.
Yucatan impact. Yeah.
And that's
under the ocean.
And the iridium
Yeah.
matches it.
Yeah. All that is really spectacular stuff. It's just like when you look at the moon, you see the craters all over it, and you realize, okay, this is what happens when you don't have an atmosphere, and you also don't have water, and you can see everything that hits. Like the whole thing. Covered.
But why are there so many fewer impacts on the other side?
Are there?
Fewer.
Really?
I don't know. The moon. I have a. It became a saying on the show. I even have a T-shirt. The moon is weird.
Yeah.
Like Gino's my weird topic guy. It's like, what should we talk about? He's like, do hollow moon. So I went into that story thinking, this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Right.
The moon is hollow. And I'm doing the research. About halfway through, I'm like, the moon is weird. And then by the end of my research, I was convinced that clearly the moon is a hollow spaceship that was brought here from another part of the galaxy, and it's here, and the lizard people are absorbing our soul energy. That's the only explanation for it. Probably not true, but man, the moon is very weird.
Well, it's also weird that the alignment and the size and the distance of the moon makes the eclipse perfect. Like, what are the odds of that? What are the odds that it is the exact distance from the sun so that when the moon and the sun align, it's exact?
Right, it's like a 400 to 1 ratio. It's exact.
It's nuts.
But you could debunk that by saying the moon is getting further and further away.
Right, but why is it perfect?
We have not found a planet in this solar system or anywhere else that has a giant moon right next to it.
Quarter
like
the size of the Earth.
We haven't found it.
Yeah.
We're the only one with it. And there are ancient legends that talk about a moonless sky and when the moon arrived. And when it arrived, it caused a great flood.
What are the ancient stories of a moonless sky? Where are they from?
Ancient Indian texts will have it, but also native legends will have it about the moon.
Really?
About a moonless sky, and then the moon arrives. And
when do they think the moon arrived?
It's hard to tell. I always go to Younger Dryas, but who really knows? The Earth was apparently just covered in this haze, just very wet, very hazy, maybe like Venus or something like that. Then the moon arrives and all that water from the atmosphere drops down to Earth. The tidal forces are crazy. There's a huge flood and everything just settles, and then the moon is here. And the moon is now like the guardian of the planet, which it really is. We couldn't really survive without it.
Because it stabilizes our atmosphere.
Stabilizes us and
stabilizes our orbit.
Our orbit and our spin and our axis.
Yeah.
Like when there's a major earthquake, the Earth changes speed. The spin changes, like our spin, it changes like measurably if there's a big earthquake. And if there's a lot of those, that could throw you off the axis. But the moon steps in like a bouncer and it settles things back down.
So the idea would be that some sort of a superior civilization placed the moon there to ensure our survival?
I don't think they care about us.
Really?
No, I don't think so.
How come?
Again, we're in very speculative territory because nobody knows.
Right.
But I would think it would just be for resources. Hey, this place has a lot of stable water. That's useful.
Don't you think they would be fascinated with us as an emerging civilization? And like I always say, that if we found a planet that had cave people on it, like just starting to learn stone tools and stuff like that, we would for sure be interested in them. We'd be so fascinated. And we would probably try to accelerate their learning curve.
You think we would?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, think of what a lot of these jerk-offs have done with like uncontacted tribes and stuff like that. We're always trying to intervene and do something with them.
You know the dark forest theory?
No.
It's Lucian Shah who wrote The Three-Body Problem and all of those.
Oh.
The dark forest theory says that if you attain a certain level of technology, the best thing you can do is just be quiet. Because the universe is a dark forest, and the first person to stick his head out dies. Because you don't want a competitor in your region. So as soon as a culture gets close to some technology that that they're on a path to threaten you got to take them out. You got to halt their technology. So the Three-Body Problem is kind of based on that. That's what they do in the books, and that seems to make a little more sense to me than sort of this altruistic, hey, let's help them, the Star Trek approach. Let's make first contact and all of that. I like, human nature is a tricky thing. We're very selfish. You and I might want to see those people and help them along, but there's a lot of people that would not want a competitor in the neighborhood.
Yeah, maybe. But what if they don't even think of us as a competitor? What if they're so advanced? Like if they're millions of years advanced? Wouldn't they like this is the thing that Diana Pasulka and Gary Nolan and a lot of these people that study crashed retrievals, there's a term that they use that these are donations.
Right.
These vehicles are donations, and the idea is we're supposed to look at this and formulate new ideas through reverse engineering.
And there's circumstantial evidence that that's true if you look at Bell Labs and all the crazy discoveries after Roswell. Like, we're using cathode ray tubes and suddenly transistors are made and silicon semiconductors and wireless transmission, and Bell Labs is all these leaps forward. Fiber optics, laser technology came out of Bell as well. And, the retrieval experts say that fiber optics and lasers for sure is reverse engineered. And it kind of makes a lot of sense because it seemed to have come out of nowhere. Suddenly Bell Labs has it. But it's... my question is, where is the stuff? We've got World War II, we go into Korea in 1950, and at the time, Russia Russia had the MiG-15s basically on par with us. I think we had the F-86 at the time, and MiG might have even been better. So that would have been a great time for some advanced tech. But America did catch up and exceed the Soviets about 51, 52, during Korea, and then has been superior ever since. But you would think that after 47, with the Soviets there, let's get some of this anti-gravitic stuff going.
Yeah, maybe the problem is that you're working in this very compartmentalized environment, so you're not allowed to share with all these different scientists. So because of that, there's no collaboration, which is necessary for real innovation. You have to have experts from a bunch of different fields analyzing all the different aspects of it. This is what Lazar pointed to, the problems that they were having at S4 when they were trying to back engineer this stuff. He's like, you can't do science like this because everything is so top secret, so compartmentalized. The metallurgists were not allowed to talk to the propulsions people, and no one was allowed to talk to anybody else, and everybody was just like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
What are these things? They didn't even tell him, allegedly, if the story's true, they didn't even tell him where this thing came from. They show it to him. There's a United States flag sticker on it. And he's like, oh, this is ours. Oh, that makes sense. And then he's examining. He's like, oh, no, it's not. Like, there's no seams in this thing. Like, what is this? What is the metal? Why is it designed for something that's 3 feet tall? Like, there's no controls inside this thing. Like, what is this reactor? How does this thing work?
There's a chair.
Yeah.
There's a couple of chairs. It looks like there's a neural interface, maybe. You hear a lot of the scientists, their frustration. Like, if I could just talk to these guys, I'm picking up an EM field from this. The metallurgist would be helpful here. Tell me what's going on. I keep coming across spinning mercury all the time.
Spinning mercury.
The spinning mercury engine has been part of the lore since ancient India has the Vimanas. Those craft. If you look at the ancient texts, it may have been in the Mahabharata.
Yeah.
But they allude to this liquid metal. And then you fast forward to the Nazis building the Bell, the Die Glocke. That was a mercury engine. And then we fast forward a little further, Mark McCandlish and the ARV vehicle, the flux liner. That's a spinning mercury engine. So spinning mercury keeps popping up. And spinning mercury would cause some type of field. What that would be, I'm not a scientist or physicist, I'm not sure, but it would certainly throw off a bunch of ions that can maybe be harnessed or used for something.
Well, it's like we're trying to explain things to us based on our current understanding of technology. Like, glass was invented a long time ago, but imagine showing up with a brand new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with Gorilla Glass, in a thin frame, and looking at what the fuck is this?
There'd be statues of you for 1,000 years.
Well, you know what glass is, you know what metal is, right? Well, this is glass and metal. You're like, what?
What?
No, what the fuck is this?
We took sand and made it real hot, and it made it clear.
Right. Drop it on the concrete and it doesn't break.
Right.
Yeah. So just our current understanding of technology based on the origins of that technology, just metal and glass. You show someone metal and glass is thousands of years old, show them what we have now with metal and glass, they'd be blown away. And you just keep going, go 1,000 years from now. What does it all look like? It's like probably some sort of gravity propulsion system, probably 3D printed so there are no seams.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the frustration about disclosure, is how far could we be by now?
Right.
Had there been disclosure in 47 or whatever.
It's even more of a psyop if it's all bullshit. Like, it's a psyop if it actually is like, wow, the government is actually really good at one thing. They're good at keeping secrets about UFOs.
That's right.
But if they're not, if it's all bullshit, like, boy, how weird that we've been like focusing on this nonsense. Like, as a culture, it got in the front page of the New York Times in 2017. But meanwhile, it's all nonsense.
Right.
That's almost less likely.
Well, if you look at what Doty did in the 70s and 80s with Paul Benowitz, when Benowitz discovered this advanced technology on Kirtland Air Force Base, he called the base and said, hey, I think there's UFOs. So they sent Doty out. He was Air Force Intelligence, OSI. Sent him out to Benowitz, and he's like, Paul, I think it might be UFOs. It is aliens. And Paul gets a little bit wacky, and he starts intercepting signals from outer space. And they're sending him messages, but it turned out it's really the NSA rented a house across the street. And Paul is committed at some point. And then Doty, over the years, changes his story and says, no, a lot of it is actually true. But Doty is also, he said as recently as 2019, Hal Puthoff tried to recruit him for a disinformation campaign with ATIM.
Really? So Hal Puthoff has been a part of disinformation campaigns?
Allegedly forever.
And what have they been doing with these disinformation campaigns? What have they been trying to muddle?
Just to keep guys like you and me fascinated and trying to figure stuff out while they can just operate their advanced technology in peace. Like, let them think it's aliens and UFOs. That's fine.
What a dirty thing to do to
Filthy.
us.
In the 50s, they were very public about anti-gravity. It was in the
Yeah.
papers. The G engine, they were talking about it. And then suddenly, whoosh, quiet.
Yeah. Jesse Michaels talks about that all the time, the Townsend Brown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Townsend, and Ning Lee, remember her story, the physicist who disappeared?
Right. And then she died in a car accident after she came back from China.